This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome in on a Monday to the Monday Mashup on Detroit Sports Podcast. Happy to be here. I am your host, as always, Shea Norling, bringing you the details on all of the sports news of the week. Excited to get to it. A lot to get to in this show, obviously with March Madness coming up. Something to be really excited about. Some weird seating. We get into that in this show. A good friend of mine, good friend of the program, Rico Beard, joins me in a little bit. We go kind of a deep dive in the March Madness, into the tournament, into Michigan State. Not with me this week is Kevin McCann. He took off to enjoy the festivities of St. Patrick's Day in Chicago, the great city of Chicago, home of the Big Ten tournament. Michigan State just won the Big Ten tournament with a win over Michigan. I don't believe Kevin was in attendance. He may have been face down in a bar somewhere, some watering hole in Chicago. Where I wanted to start this show, though, kind of just on one of my monologues, is the NFL and a trade that went down this past week, just after we finished recording on Sunday of last week. It feels like a month ago by now. So many things happened. There was the Russell Westbrook stuff, which I do want to touch on just shortly. But this trade I want to start with, and it feels, again, like in the age of Twitter, everything goes so slow. Everything feels like it takes just an eternity. Like this week felt like a month. Like it feels like Russell Westbrook's thing in Utah. It feels like this trade in the NFL went down on February 17th, not on St. Patrick's Day. But this trade, of course, it's the only trade I could be talking about. It's the trade that shook the league, and it's Odell Beckham to the Browns. And the reason that I want to talk about it is, one, it gets me really excited about a team that I have had absolutely no reason to be excited about other than their quarterback as of late. And it gives me a reason to kind of just go into a dive on what the hell is going on with the Giants, where I don't understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. And it's one of the more shocking turns for me. I can't really think, maybe outside of the Cleveland Cavaliers, of an organization that has won a title in this decade and gone so far downhill from there since having won that title. It's one of those things that it's just really, really odd the way that they've gone. But where I want to start is with the Browns and how exciting their team is going into next season. I've loved Baker Mayfield since Texas Tech. I mean, I've literally followed this kid's career, his entire college career, his entire professional career. I have just adored him as a player. I think he benefited a ton from Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech. Obviously, then didn't get the scholarship, maybe. Didn't get the scholarship at Texas Tech, so he went to Oklahoma, walked on there. I think he benefited a ton there from Lincoln Riley and playing in that kind of run and gun Big 12 offense, kind of that air raid offense. Just really helpful for his development. And then he came into the league and kind of, he reminds me of a guy who's always had a chip on his shoulder, who, like, he had to be the walk-on at both schools that he went to. Like, things like that where he's super competitive. I remember, I think it might have been on this pod, one time mentioning in Hard Knocks, Baker Mayfield was throwing headbutts at his players over, like, scrimmage game, third down conversions. Like, he was ripping a headbutt at Nick Chubb over nothing. Like a scrimmage first down means nothing. And Baker Mayfield's getting hype, fist bumping, headbutting teammates. He's got that fire. He's got it. What he was missing was a good head coach to start the year, right? Hugh Jackson, awful. By the way, Hugh Jackson, looking at this trade go down, just being the coach of the 0-16 Browns to being the coach of the Browns this season that finished 7-8-1 and really were just miles better than they were under Hugh. I mean, since after Hugh left, what were they, 5-3 or something? Baker Mayfield's numbers were astounding, like, since Hugh took off. Now they're 14-1 Super Bowl odds last I saw. Like, that's where I want to start. Do you know how insane it is that the Browns have the ability to go from 0-16 to 7-8-1, which, I mean, that in itself is amazing. You to be 0-16, you have to be so bad. And like Lions fans, I'm sure know about this, is you have to be really bad to go 3-13 in the NFL. Like to not trip into 4 wins, you have to be horrible. To go 0-16, you have to be worse than horrible. To go from that to 7-8-1 to then 14-1 odds to win the Super Bowl, and you have Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, and you've got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in your backfield. You've got a serviceable, if not good, to great tight end in David Njoku. And now you're looking at, well, you have this guy in Duke Johnson, and he's one of the guys I really want to talk about with this offense, who you can suddenly just put out in the slot, who you've really struggled to find a role in your offense because he's such like an in-between runner and receiver. Like he's almost a James White light. And now you just have this opportunity where you can go, all right, look, we've never really been able to find a consistent place for you in our offense. We're going to make you the slot receiver. And you're going to give Baker Mayfield, who has done nothing in his career but win, who has done nothing in his career but battle adversity, who came into this league with a chip on his shoulder and the mentality of, I'm here to win Super Bowls. I'm here to change a culture. You're going to give him Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Duke Johnson. You're going to give him Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb behind a very good offensive line with David Njoku at the end of it and a solid defense. I have so much to be excited about when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. And I think that so far, and it'll depend on what they do in the draft. I said this last year about them. It wouldn't have been on this pod, but I said this a year ago that I thought that they really did the best in free agency with those trades that they made a year ago to bring in some guys. I just thought they did a great job. I've loved their front office. I've loved what John Dorsey has done in a lot of his tenure as the general manager. And then they went into the draft, and I was really confused. Like, taking Baker, I loved because I love Baker, but I didn't know why you take him first. And then I don't know why you decide then to take, who was it? The cornerback at the next pick. And I was like, you could have taken Saquon Barkley 1 and then still gotten Baker Mayfield, but I digress. They've done really well as the front office. And I got to see what they do in the draft before I really go all in. But this is a team, to me, that you now look at what just happened in Kansas City with Tyreek Hill, and I want to get to that too when I get to the Russell Westbrook stuff. But you look at just what just happened with Tyreek Hill, and it's like, dude, maybe the Browns are the best team to challenge the Patriots in the AFC right now. And that's a Patriots team that I'm not sure, having done nothing in free agency, having nothing to speak of so far as real trades go, re-signings, the draft positioning kind of stinks if you're looking at, you're having the 32nd overall pick. I look at the Patriots and I'm like, the Browns really might have the best offense in the NFL. They certainly have the best offense in the AFC to me, especially if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, which I think at this point, if you're the Chiefs and you cut Kareem Hunt, you're going to have to cut Tyreek Hill. And again, I'll touch more on that. But if the Browns do have the best offense, I think they already have a great defense. It was top 10 a year ago. And I think you're looking at a team that really can go to the Super Bowl. This isn't something that I've thought I would say about the Browns, but it does show to me, like, the NFL, it's proving a point that I've always kind of tried to die on. And it's something I've always tried to die on, especially with Lions fans, who will say, well, you have to look long-term. You have to build long-term. You can't. Not in the NFL. And I think the Browns are proving that. And I think if you look back to the Jags, and yeah, I know the argument against it is, well, you have to have these pieces in place to begin with. And the Browns and the Jags had those things in place. And of course, when I talk about the Jags, I'm talking about in 2016, they finished 3-13. And then in 2017, they went to the AFC Championship game. The Browns kind of the same thing now, is they went 0-16, 7-8-1, and now they're like on track for the AFC Championship game. And to me, it's, look, stop planning for the long rebuild. Like, do it fast, because career windows in the NFL are short. Whether you're a coach, general manager, a player, whatever, the windows are short. It's a league where players don't stick around for an awful long time. We got guys retiring on Instagram Live smoking a blunt, like saying that this isn't football, like it's a stain on the NFL. And we have guys literally just pulling up Instagram Live, sparking a blunt, smoking it, and saying, I'm picking this over football. It, like, build fast, because now that's what the Browns are working on. They had the defense in place, right? They had a quarterback, finally. They have now a new head coach in Freddie Kitchens, and they are like looking at this, and John Dorsey goes, hey, If the Giants are dumb enough to trade Odell Beckham Jr., the time is now. Let's do it. Because the window is short. The Patriots are the exception, not the rule. Nobody has 20 years of sustained success in this league. No one. The fact that they assembled Thanos in Brady and Belichick, that's the exception, not the rule. And the Browns are going by the rule. And the rule is, don't try to sell for long term. Don't try to build long term. Even if you look at Oakland, this is what Gruden's doing right now. He's not building for year 10. He's building for year 3. At this point, he has all these draft picks. He's made all these trades. He's now brought in Antonio Brown. He's brought in Tyrell Williams. He's brought in some guys. He's got Derek Carr still. He has an opportunity to draft a quarterback in the first round because he has a plethora of picks. He has the opportunity to put some things in place where, okay, now you have the building blocks. Next year, go get the one thing you need and you're there. And that's it. And maybe even Oakland's ceiling is higher. Maybe they can even go further than that this year. But that's where I just look at the NFL and I look at what the Lions are doing right now. And the Lions, same thing. I think they're building for right now, but I think they're also putting things in place for a couple years from now. You know, you went and got Trey Flowers. You went and shored up your defense with Justin Coleman. You went and got guys where you are now going to have some pieces in place. And maybe you're not going to win everything next year, but the year after, when Stafford's cap hit, if you trade him or whatever you want to do with him, and the theory that they maybe take Dwayne Haskins in this draft, all of these things come together, and then you're looking at, oh, we have something to work with here. You look a year down the road, and all of a sudden, you're cooking with gas. And it's like, let's just go get that one thing we need, whether it's a free agent wide receiver or tight end, whether it's some spot that you need to shore up on the defense, whether it's a quarterback, an offensive lineman, go get that thing that puts you over the top, and all of a sudden you're competing. That's why I've always heard the argument, build slow, go through the rebuild, get the young guys, bring some youth. The NFL's different, man. The NFL's not a league where I can do that. The NFL's a league where I got to go the Browns route. I got to go the Jags route. And I know, like, maybe it doesn't finish all that well for the Browns. Maybe they don't win the Super Bowl, but maybe they get there. I know the Jags didn't win the AFC or the Super Bowl, but hey, they got to the AFC Championship. And they really were poised for a run, but they went and did something stupid and spent $55 million on Blake Bortles. So it's you have to combat the good with the bad, and there will always be front office mistakes. I think John Dorsey in Cleveland has just done an excellent job for a number of years now, and especially this summer. This spring, whatever, he's killing it. And I think that's where now you're looking at the Lions and you go, hey, Bob Quinn, you've now made it very clear what you want to do. You're going to hold out. You're going to make this a defensive football team. It might work this year. You have to make the playoffs, because if you don't, I don't think you get to keep your job. And again, that's kind of just the window shutting for these guys as far as success goes. Their hope is they make the playoffs this year, and maybe they're a 10-6 team that makes that happen, or maybe 10-6 just misses the playoffs, but it's not bad enough to get them fired. But all of a sudden, then 2020, you're cooking with gas. And everybody's in a hurry to get it done now because the lockout comes in 2021, which is why I don't know why the Giants are being so damn silly. I'm just going to spell it out as simply as I can when it comes to the New York Giants. Everything they did this year, they should have done a year ago. And it goes back to my point. You rebuild when you have to, and you do it fast. They had a way out of this. They had a way to not be this bad. If they wanted to trade Odell Beckham Jr., they should have done it a year ago when they didn't have him signed to a ridiculous 3-year, 5-year contract, however, whatever it was, that ends up with them taking a $20 million cap penalty this year. Like, it didn't make sense that you sign him and then trade him and take the cap penalty when you're paying Eli Manning $23 million to be a washed-up quarterback at 39 years old who can't find a target, and then you go and give Golden Tate 4 years. It's everything they're doing is silly. Like, if they wanted to get this done right, you cut Eli, you give Eli's money to Landon Collins, you just build for the future. You draft a quarterback a year ago. That's where people are like, well, now they're going to draft the quarterback for the future in New York Giants. And I'm like, dude, they should have done it a year ago when they had Darnold on the board. Cut Eli this year, give his money to Landon Collins, make Darnold the starter. I mean, you're seeing a guy that now is in the same market. He's handling it okay. He has a future. He can develop. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but in a different system, like a Pat Shurmur system, where he would have had a year to sit behind someone, like he didn't have that for the Jets. But you could have given Darnold a year to sit behind someone in New York in the form of Eli Manning, who's won 2 Super Bowls, no less. The Giants, just to me, are just absolutely idiotic in all of this. Like, I get that Odell's a pain in the ass, and I'll get on that more too, but I get that he's a pain in the ass. And I get that maybe if you're Dave Gettleman, that's a problem for you. But then I also have to think, if you're Dave Gettleman and you can't handle wide receivers or big-time players having personalities, why do you have a job in New York? Like, the market feeds into this. So maybe stop being Dave Gettleman if you're Dave Gettleman, which I don't think is possible because he's just an idiot. It's times like these, I texted one of my good friends and I'm like, hey, I'm not even a Giants fan and I'm pissed off. And the reason I was so mad is, dude, how do these guys have these jobs? Like, I'm telling you, I could go into the front office and do a better job than Dave Gettleman. I could. I know that I could. That's what's so hilarious to me. And so that's where I look at this and I'm like, as an organization, the Giants are absolutely, completely silly. All right. We've got Rico Beard coming up. I want to get to him. We're going to talk all about March Madness, all about Michigan State, all about this wacky seeding. And this interview with Rico is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audio book with a 30-day trial membership. All you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/mashup and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It is really that easy. All you have to do, again, go to audible.com/mashup and you can get started with a free trial today. 30-day free trial membership. It's got the best content of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. Give it a try. audibletrial.com/mashup. Joining me on the mashup, host of the Spartan Beat in Lansing, it is Rico Beard. Rico, how you doing?
Not bad, Shea. Not bad. After watching Michigan State beat Michigan for the third time.
Yes, sir.
It was a pretty good day. As Ice Cube said, it was a good day.
Yeah, well, it was for me, too, as a Michigan State fan. And I have a question about the game, a couple things about the game, and a couple things about the tournament. But my big takeaway from the game was two things. Matt McQuaid had the game of his life, and Cassius Winston just continues to rise in the ranks of Izzo point guards. To me, I think he's at a point where he's coming over Mateen Cleaves. I don't know how you feel about it, but the way he runs in transition, especially being injured, is like, it's just incredible to watch.
Yeah, but before we put, let's pump the brakes on the Mateen Cleaves. I know where you're coming from. Here's the problem with that. Mateen has hardware. Cassius hasn't gotten out of the first weekend yet. And like it or not, you're judged based on, at Michigan State, what you do in the NCAA tournament. It's January, February Izzo for a reason. Lately, it hasn't been Izzo. But, now, if Cassius wins a national title, now you could put him in that category. But as of now, Mateen Cleaves can still hold up that ring and say, no, sorry.
I hear where you're coming
from.
Yet. What if Cassius wins the national title and he does so being on one of the rare Izzo teams to beat Duke?
If Cassius Winston wins the title this year with this team, then yes. Because this team is being held together with chewing gum and duct tape. And now you lost yet another key player in Kyle Arns. And it was just, it was sad. I mean, I'm sitting right behind the bench. You could hear Kyle screaming.
You could hear it on the broadcast.
I'm not talking like, he's just screaming. You felt for the kid. The players are crying. Izzo is crying. His mother is sitting behind me. She's crying. You're just hoping that he's going to be okay. He was screaming. He thought it was broken. They wheeled him out. He found out that it wasn't, but he thought he was done. He thought his career, not just the season, he thought his career was over, and he was apologizing to his team, saying how sorry he was. That's the type of player that he is. His ankle is barely on, and he's just like, guys, I'm so sorry. And when he showed up at halftime and it wasn't broken, I think that kind of helped the team because, to be honest with you, Shea, it at that point was a critical juncture in the game because Michigan State looked like they were so deflated.
Right.
I mean, Matt McQuaid when he broke every huddle, he was like, okay, 1, 2, 3 arms. Like he tried to get everybody motivated, but it looked as if this thing was done and they didn't care anymore. They just kind of looked like, why bother? We're going to lose. Let's just go ahead and lose, but I don't want anybody else getting hurt. They found a way to rally, and Matt McQuaid held the team together until he went Cassius, and he finished with a flurry, and he got the game-winning shot. Could have been an and one, but I give the referees credit. I know a lot of people it's the ref's fault. The refs in the last 2 minutes said, guys, we're not blowing the whistle. Unless we see blood, we don't care. We're not blowing the whistle. We're not calling ticky-tack stuff, okay? You two are the number 1 and 2 seeds or number 1 and 3 seeds. You go out there and you decide the championship on your own.
Well, and I think the ref thing is weird, too, because the Michigan fans, especially on Twitter that I saw, were just already, it was 10 minutes left in the second half, and they were jumping on the this is the ref's fault bandwagon. But I'm like looking at the first half, and Michigan State had 0 free throws, and it's not like they weren't going to the basket as much, but they were going to the basket enough.
Foul. Michigan had 1 foul in the first half. 1. So there you go. Now here's the thing: for your Michigan fans, talk to Beeline afterwards, and he was kind of candid. He said, "I was like, hey man, you guys got a hell of a team." He's like, stop it. We don't. Okay. I know what you're trying to do and I appreciate it, but we don't because we can't finish. We couldn't close out. We got a lot of problems. You go in there and you ask that Michigan State team, how does it feel to close out? Because we couldn't do it again. And that's a problem. And he wasn't happy. That may have been, he wasn't like disrespectful, but I could tell it bothered him that he lost to Michigan State 3 times in 21 days.
Well, it would hurt anyone.
He probably had no clue that was going to happen. But 3 times in 21 days, come on. I haven't seen that ever.
Yeah,
ever.
Feels good for Michigan State fans, too, coming off losing to Michigan 3 straight games and now getting payback, winning 3 straight in 21 days, whatever it was.
Right.
So
yeah, you can't use the referees. So if they do, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell them, man. Kick rocks.
So then you brought up Kyle Ahrens, and it felt bad to me, and especially after seeing the seeding, where apparently not only did the Big Ten championship game not matter, the Big Ten tournament not matter, it felt like the Big Ten regular season didn't even matter, because I kind of think Michigan got the easier path in Gonzaga's bracket, and it almost feels like Michigan State just, whatever they did in this game, whatever they did in this tournament, it wouldn't have mattered. They were going to get screwed. They were going to get Duke. And it just, after Kyle Ahrens went down, it feels like that's kind of all that came out of this game was he broke his ankle. And I know it wasn't broken, but he's out for the tournament.
No, it is. And for people, I got hammered on Twitter because people are like, oh, you're acting like the NCAA selection committee, they have multiple brackets that they can go to. I'm like, guys, no, they don't. And to prove my point, you remember when you had the rogue employee that printed out the entire bracket before it went out there?
Yeah,
he knew because it was already done. So if that's the case, the Big Ten needs to do what the Big 12 and what the ACC did. They moved their championship game to Saturday to make sure that they got good seeding. Because here's the thing. You want to put that thing to bed. If you're the tournament selection committee looking at Michigan State at halftime, there was no way you thought that they were going to win this game and pull it out. But they did. But at that point, they had already made it up. I think that's why Michigan got the easier draw. They thought Michigan was going to win. And instead of doing a last-second switch, they just said, bleep it, just leave it as is. And because there's no way in the world Michigan State should be that low of a 2 seed that they're playing in Duke's bracket. And conversely, Michigan got rewarded for losing the game, going out to L.A. to play in the Gonzaga bracket. And they're going to play a team that they played last year in Montana. Whereas Michigan State, believe it, if they get past Bradley, the next game that they play
Louisville.
It doesn't matter. It's going to be a team that they played already this year, either Minnesota or Louisville. I've never seen that before.
And playing a team that you've already lost to in the second round of the tournament scares the hell out of me as a fan.
Well, you got to remember, too, there was no Matt McQuaid. So Matt McQuaid wasn't in that game, and that was the game that Cassius fouled out, and it went to overtime, and it was at Louisville. So they had everything lined up for them. That's why I'm thinking, yeah, if I'm MSU, they should be able to beat them. It's actually the Minnesota thing that bothers me a little bit more because they know you.
Yeah.
Louisville has the game that Minnesota knows you, and they have common opponents with you. Whereas Louisville, I think it would be a little bit of revenge. You know, it was at that point you only had Cassius as the only ball handler. Foster Lawyer wasn't ready, and as I said, McQuaid was injured. So if they make it that far, I think that they should be okay. I think this is the year they get out of the first weekend for the first time in 3 seasons.
Sure, hope so. And I think this year, too, is the best coaching job Izzo has done in the past couple years. In my mind, I think he should win Coach of the Year. I don't know how you feel about it.
You know, I thought he should have won the Big Ten Coach of the Year. They gave it to Matt Painter. Yeah, how'd that work out? The fact that this team is running on fumes, and now you just lost another key cog in the wheel, and Kyle Arns out for the rest of the year. Yeah, I mean, now you got to rely on Aaron Henry. And, hey, Aaron Henry made a big-time play when he got the steal and went coast to coast and dunked it on Kiki. But now he's got to do that consistently. Now he has to take over and become the man. There's no more, you're a freshman anymore, kid. They got to rely on you. You got to go in there, and you're hoping in a perfect world he has that Darrell Summers type tournament. But I don't think that that's going to happen.
Well, it could if he plays like he did today. And it kind of has been like a next man up theme for this team all year. When Nick Ward went down and people said, look, Xavier Tillman, it's time to just put up or shut up. You got to play well. And Xavier Tillman, to his credit, has played really, really well since Nick Ward went down and even now that he's come back. With Nick Ward being healthy again, and he looks healthy, what's the ceiling for Michigan State in the tournament? You think Final Four? Do you think being in the same bracket as Duke kind of screws that up? Or how do you feel about that?
No, being in the same bracket as Duke definitely screwed that up. I don't think – I think you would need Nick Ward in order to defeat Duke. You need the bodies. You need people to throw at Zion and hope that you can get him in foul trouble or wear him down. I think Nick helps with the depth because even coming off the bench, because he's not 100% yet, he's still favoring that hand. He tried taking off the cast, but the trainer said, no, you're going to put that right back on. But I like the fact that if you put Nick Ward up against the other team's backup center, Michigan State wins. They win that matchup.
Yeah, I like Nick Ward coming off the bench.
Yeah, coming off the bench. And here's what I want to bang my head against the wall. Like, oh, see, I told you Nick Ward, Tillman's better. Guys, they're equally as good. They do different things. When you're playing against a stretch 4 and a stretch 5 personnel, Tillman's better. But if you're going up against just a regular center, then you want to get Nick Ward in for his offense. Playing up against Michigan, you don't need to score a lot down low. You need Tillman to defend the way that he does. But the fact that you could go Twin Towers, that's beneficial. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people can't see that because they're like, oh, no. You can either have one or the other. That's just myopic thinking on their part. You know, you can like Coke and Pepsi at the same time. You don't have to hate the other. So I think it's a good thing that they do have Nick Ward coming back.
Oh, definitely. And I think, like you said, he's favoring that hand. I saw him a couple times getting strong to the basket in the post-up, using the left hand to finish. I think he looked more comfortable today than I've seen him in a while, and that's really inspiring for the tournament. Flipping the script, though, what do you think the ceiling is for Michigan? Because I feel like their shooting is a little streaky. They maybe have some scary matchups with Nevada or Texas Tech. I don't know how far this team can go.
I think, people are going to be like, oh, there you go, Sparty. I think Nevada is one to keep a finger on because Nevada is a senior-laden team. So they're not going to succumb to pressure. They're not going to get caught up in the emotion. That's how Michigan gets you. That's how they weren't able to knock off Michigan State because most teams all of a sudden get caught up and start jacking up threes. And, they panic. When you have a senior-laden team who won't panic against Michigan, you can beat them. But I think that Michigan being in the Gonzaga region, I don't see them winning that because Ru Hashimoto, yeah, he's good. He's really good big man for Gonzaga. You're not going to be able to stop him with Teskey. He's actually better than Teskey, and he out-Teskey's Teskey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if they make it to Gonzaga, they're not going to win that. I don't see that happening. I think that Michigan State, the ceiling for them is the Elite Eight. In order to get to the Final Four, they would need a little bit of luck or somebody playing the game of their life.
Is there anyone that can beat Duke? I'm looking at the bracket, and I think like VCU a few years ago was a darling. If there's a chance that Duke gets upset, I think it would be VCU, at least in the early rounds. But a first weekend exit would be wild. I don't know, outside of North Carolina, who I really like to beat Duke.
I don't even think Carolina could do it, to be honest with you.
Is it just a foregone conclusion to you? Duke is winning it all?
Well, Duke has the intimidation factor, and that's the thing is, if you can get over the fact of Zion and it's Zion, and just go out there and play, you can beat them. But most people can't. It's easier said than done. Teams can hang in there, but then look, they're Duke, so they're going to get the calls, and they got Zion. It's hard, man. You're going to need Duke to have an off night shooting. Now, here's the thing about Duke: if you get them in a game similar to the game today with Michigan, because they have so many superstars, the problem is for Duke, who takes the final shot, and that could be a problem.
I mean, it's been a problem.
Move the ball around.
They had that problem when they played Gonzaga the first time, and R.J. Barrett tried to play hero ball down the stretch, and it wasn't working out. They don't know who their guy is. Like, Trey Jones doesn't seem like he's ready to take over. Cam Reddish doesn't feel like he's ready to take over, and you just can't rely on Zion for distance shooting. So I think that's where if you catch him in a close game, maybe you have a shot.
You can. So it's not to say that, you can't beat Duke. It's just it's going to be a difficult task. But here's the thing. You want to win a national title, you got to play tough teams. And eventually, Duke is going to pop up on your schedule. They're going to have to do it with a short bench. This is one of those games where you're probably going to need to rest Cassius as much as you can in the first weekend, if that's possible, simply because this team goes as Cassius goes. And you're going to need him. And I don't know if Cassius will be able to get around some of those Duke players. In order to beat Duke, everybody, McQuaid, Goins, Tillman, they're going to have just the game of their lives. It's going to have to be one of those games that we speak about for the next 10, 15 years. Like, oh, my God, remember when they went out there and everybody was just lighting it up against Duke? So we'll have to wait and see. But I think right now for all the Big Ten teams, they're probably not going to make it.
Yeah, the way I looked at the bracket when they all came out, Purdue, I think, got a rough draw on the 3 that they got. Wisconsin got a really tough draw on the 4. Or the 5 against, who are they playing? I've picked them to be upset. New Mexico State. I just think a lot of the Big Ten teams got some pretty brutal draws, pretty brutal placements, and Michigan State no exception. I think it could be a rough tournament. And I do have, do you agree the ACC is the best conference and the Big Ten is the deepest, or is the Big Ten still the best in your mind?
No, I mean, the ACC is the best conference, but the reason why the ACC is the best conference is because the ACC wins titles. The Big Ten doesn't win titles. That's why the Big Ten keeps getting screwed in the tournament selection. That's why there are 3 ACC teams as the number 1 seed. When you win, you get street cred. The Big Ten hasn't won since Michigan State in 2000, 19 years ago. That's most of the people on the basketball teams weren't born yet. Just think about that. Guys weren't born yet. All your Michigan State freshmen, Aaron Henry, wasn't born when Michigan State actually won the title.
Zion Williamson wasn't born.
Yeah, they weren't. But Duke, Carolina, and Villanova have won the last, 5 or 6 titles.
Yeah.
So that's why I still have to say it's the ACC, because in the end, kind of like in football, the Big Ten beats up on each other, but the ACC brings home the big hardware. So that's the difference.
It feels like they have the best teams. One last thing, for you in this tournament, who has the best chance to win it all besides Duke?
I'd have to really break it down and look at it, but I do think this may be the year that Gonzaga actually does it. They got all the pieces. They got a pretty good draw. I can see the Zags, the Bulldogs winning the whole thing. Carolina, just because they've played up against Duke and they're not afraid. I don't think that Virginia could do it. Tony Bennett.
I never trust Virginia.
Until Tony Bennett can get over the hump, I don't trust Virginia. You're right.
He's the same thing.
I would say if you're looking at it. Yeah, go ahead.
He's the same way I felt about Mark Few before Mark Few finally got Gonzaga to the Final Four. And now I'm like, maybe they really can win it. But until I see Virginia get there, I can't pick them to get there.
Yeah, and the other team to watch out for, because Kentucky. Kentucky has all the pieces to win a national title. Can they just stay focused and do it for 6 games? They got all the pieces there, man. So I would say those 3 teams.
One team
Gonzaga,
I like.
Kentucky. Yeah.
One team I like you didn't mention, and you mentioned it a little, not the team, but just the idea of being a senior-laden team is Tennessee. And I think I go into the tournament and you look at like the stat where one-and-done teams have only won the national title one time, and it was Duke in 2012 or whatever it was. That's the only time a one-and-done team that's freshman-led has won it. That's kind of what scares me to pick Duke with 3 freshmen to win it all. But I look at Tennessee, and it's pretty much all seniors, all guys who have been there before. My only issue is, again, they haven't gotten over the hump, and so it makes it difficult for me to pick them.
Yeah, and I don't trust Rick Barnes either.
Kind of the same thing as Tony Bennett.
In Texas, he never could get it done. He had Kevin Durant. They couldn't win. I'm sorry. Not a Rick Barnes fan. So I like Tennessee. Fair. I just don't trust the coach.
More than fair. Rico, you're the best. Thanks for talking to me.
No problem, Shea. Anytime.
Have a safe drive back from Chicago. Go green.
All right, man. Thanks. Go white.
All right, so left for the show today, I have just a couple things. I want to get into the Russell Westbrook stuff because I had some really big opinions about it when it started. I want to also touch on the Tyreek Hill stuff, and then I have the NBA Power Rank, as always and as promised, with a little playoff spice. So where I want to go with the Russell Westbrook thing is kind of simple. I think that, and there's been a lot said that Russ needs to relax, and I think that that's true to a degree. And there's been a lot said that, fans need to have a stricter code of conduct. Fans need to be held to a higher level of accountability. I think that's absolutely true. I think that's more true than the former, to be honest with you. And the reason I think that is a couple things. One, now we don't know everything that went down with this situation in Utah. And for those of you who didn't see it, it was a fan, who reportedly told Russ Westbrook that he needed to get back down on his knees. It's a guy who, on his Twitter account, there were things saying, go back where you came from, which we don't need to elaborate on. We know what it means. There were things calling him a class act. There was the N-word. There was a ton of stuff. And it was pretty clear to me that it was racially charged. And in fact, Russ said the same thing. He said it was racial. And honestly, that's all I need to hear for me to accept that it was. We're in a position where I think it's odd because there's the side of America that thinks everybody's offended by everything, but there's also the side that is offended, and you don't always get to choose what offends them. And that's where, to me, Russell Westbrook in a place like Utah, where there have been black coaches, black players, you name it, who have come out and said, look, this place gets racial. Look, this place isn't the nicest place in the world to play sometimes. And I don't want to put it all on Utah because I think it happens everywhere in the NBA. It happens here, I'm sure. No, it happens in Boston. And I think that a lot of people, they'll turn and go, oh, Utah's racist, or oh, Boston's racist. As a Celtics fan, I've heard it. I've been on Twitter and had people call me a Celtic KKK fan. Or, I've had pictures of the Tiki Torch mob thrown into my mentions just because I'm talking about the Celtics. Or somebody comes in with Danny Ainge wearing a KKK hood. And it's like, I get that Boston has a bad history. I think Boston has come a long way from that. I think they're one of the more liberal cities in America. Utah, I don't think is one of the more liberal cities in America. I think any voting record or any progressiveness poll that you look at will tell you the same thing. And I realize Utah's not a city, Salt Lake. But I think this happens everywhere. And I think a problem with it is we lump it all into one place where we say Utah's racist or we say Boston's racist. Really, it's just like the people who aren't racist giving an excuse to not talk about racism that's happening right in their own backyard. Especially the people that go and jump and say, well, Utah, they're just racist. It's not true. Not every Jazz fan is racist. And we never said every Jazz fan is. My issue comes with people who say Westbrook just needs to chill out. Imagine if you're working at your job and you're sitting in your cubicle or in your office or wherever you work, and somebody comes up and is just heaving a racial slur at you while you're just doing your job. You'd put somebody through a wall. Like, you wouldn't stand for it. And that's part of the issue for me, is like, people go, well, Westbrook just needs to chill. Well, if people are on the sideline calling him the N-word, and he's a guy who's already battled being touched and fighting with fans, dude, I'm sorry, but I don't know that Russ needs to chill. And I get, like, well, now they know that they can get under your skin. Well, maybe you shouldn't be courtside if you keep screaming the N-word at players. Or if you keep making players feel like they're in a racially hostile environment. Like, that's it. I don't see any other way out. And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for Westbrook to go and look at these people and say, on everything I love, I will fuck you up. I'm not going to make excuses for it. Because you shouldn't. Because that's not acceptable. But it's also, let's stop putting the onus on Russ to behave himself or to be above it, whatever you want to say. Dude, people are standing there and making players feel uncomfortable, like they are in a racially hostile environment. To me, that's a no-brainer. I'm on the side of the players every time in that situation. If they feel attacked or unsafe, or if they feel uncomfortable by something fans are saying, there's no reason a fan should be in the front row yelling the M-word at players. Yelling racial things at players. It's ridiculous. And the NBA absolutely needs to act on it, because it's unacceptable. It's the one league where the players or the fans are right up on the players. It's the one league where you can basically feel the sweat dripping off them. And you're not that close in football. And football is loud. They can't hardly hear you anyways, but we've seen it. Marcus Peters jumped into the stands. You know, baseball, right fielders are getting heckled all the time, but you know, I don't know how racial it all is. In the NBA, it gets racial, and we know why. And there was a piece of audio on a radio show in town that talked about it in baseball and said, to be honest with you, in baseball, there's not a whole lot of players that look like me. And I think that says something about it. But in a sport like basketball that's dominated by minorities, yeah, there's a racial aspect when you go into a very, very predominantly white city like Salt Lake. A very conservative region like Salt Lake, like Utah. There will be racial aspects. And it's not right. And it's not acceptable. And it's on the NBA to take the onus for this. And it's on the Jazz. And they did. They gave him a lifetime ban. It's the right thing to do. But the onus should not fall on Russell Westbrook to, like, looking at Russ and going, hey, man, control yourself. I get it, but it's missing the point. Because I don't know a lot of people that if somebody just stood outside your place of work and called you racial slurs, I don't know a lot of people that are controlling themselves. You know, whatever you are, there's slurs for everything. They're going to stand out and call you whatever you want, whatever they want to call you. Whatever gets under your skin. And yeah, like, now people know this is what gets under Russ's skin. You know what should get under Russ's skin is shooting like a stormtrooper. 2 of 16 the other night, 7 points. 0 of 7 from 3. That's what should get under Russ's skin. You want to go to a game and yell something about you shoot like a stormtrooper? Yell something about you can't throw a rock in the ocean? Hey, you stink. Fine, do it. You want to go to a game and start getting under his skin with racial slurs? Hey, get on your knees, boy. No, that's not acceptable. And I will defend Westbrook in that situation 100 times. And it's other players that came up on interviews and said the same thing. Look, we're here. We got racial stuff going on. They say racial things. They're not nice to us. Now, I don't think I would have defended Westbrook if he jumped in the stands and throttled those people. But look, I get losing your cool. You know, and I'm one of the people that thought a couple weeks ago when that kid touched him and he talked to the dad that Westbrook actually handled it pretty well. That he talked to the dad. He said, hey, look, man, don't let him touch me. Because, like, you're not a zoo animal. And that's Kyrie Irving said the same thing. Sometimes it feels like we're zoo animals. They're not zoo animals. They're just dudes. You know, the article about Kyrie came out where Chris Haynes said Kyrie's one of those dudes where sometimes you see him in the street, he'll put his head down and ignore you. Sometimes he'll talk to you. Kyrie Irving is a normal guy? Breaking news. This just in. You know, these are normal people that will react in normal ways. Asking them to be above it, to be above racism, to be above whatever their perceived offense is, it misses the point to me. The point is that we all have to be better, and that the NBA, that these stadiums, these teams have to kind of wear the onus and go, look, if you're going to come in this stadium and say things like that, you're gone, and you're never coming back. And good on the Jazz for doing that. That's the absolute right thing to do. But I mean, there were verified blogs that write about the Jazz with blue check marks coming out and saying things like the racism in Utah is a narrative. And I get it. Not every Jazz fan's racist. I've been there. I'd said it with the Celtics. But to just call it a narrative, you're missing the point too. Like, it has to be discussed, and the fact that you just brush it off as a narrative is lazy, and it just completely ignores the issue at hand. And it's not the only issue in the league, because I want to talk about Tyreek Hill too. You know, it's these things in sports. Boy, oh boy, you're telling me Tyreek Hill, the guy that punched and choked his pregnant wife, just beat his kid and broke his arm? Color me shocked. I can't believe it. You're telling me Tyreek Hill broke his kid's arm? The same kid that his girlfriend was pregnant with when he damn near pushed her down a flight of stairs? Oh, man, I'm surprised. You know, and then we got people talking about, well, it happened twice. No, it didn't happen twice. He got caught twice. This is how he lives his life. You can't sell me anything else. It's a long track record of abusers in this world that the only way that they stop abusing is if they aren't with the victim. That's it. You want to sell me Tyreek Hill only beat his kid twice? He only got caught twice. And I don't think he should ever take another snap in the NFL. And if the Chiefs have any balls, they'll cut him the same way they cut Kareem Hunt. It's the same thing, if not worse. In fact, it is worse. I'll go ahead and say it. What Kareem did was disgusting, kicking that girl. But you know what? This is a guy who now has a track record of beating up his pregnant girlfriend, then her fiance, and then breaking his 4-year-old son's arm. And don't give me, it's just allegations right now. Again, he pled guilty to choking and punching his pregnant girlfriend. I'm not giving this guy the benefit of the doubt. He should never see another snap in the NFL again. And it's embarrassing when you've got guys like Colin Kaepernick who, God forbid, you have an opinion. But a guy like Tyreek Hill, I mean, we haven't learned anything. Adrian Peterson admits he still uses physical abuse to discipline his children. And we got Kareem Hunt. He's going to have a job with the Browns. Get a second chance. I'm not here to tell you it's right or wrong. I'm here to tell you the Browns are going to have a nice offense. I can tell you it's wrong. And I can tell you, look, the NFL doesn't care. So when Tyreek Hill is on the field, don't be surprised. I won't be. I will be advocating against it, though. It is one hill I will die on. If you want to beat up your family, if you want to be an abuser, you're done. I got no place for it. It's a problem I got with Johnny Manziel. It's a problem I got with Ben Roethlisberger, that these guys are still on field. It's a problem I got with Ray Lewis. It's a problem I got with the NFL, to be frankly honest, because it's guys in the NFL have lost their jobs for much less. Ray Lewis, he's in the Hall of Fame. He gets to sit on a broadcast booth every single weekend. Ben Roethlisberger, he will be in the Hall of Fame. Adrian Peterson, Hall of Fame. Tyreek Hill, I got a hard time believing he's not going to have a job. That's how it should be. Like, this shouldn't be difficult. If you beat up your wife, you're done. Why do we need video for that? Ray Rice was a 2-game suspension until the video came out. And then it was a full season. But 2 games! He broke his fiance's head off an elevator. 2 games! What's Tyreek Hill going to get? Kareem Hunt, he got an 8-game suspension for kicking a girl in a lobby. What's Tyreek Hill going to get for breaking his kid's arm? Because he didn't get any discipline when he punched his girlfriend in the face. The NFL, I mean, I'm telling you, these leagues, they got to start owning their act. They got to start owning what they put out there. On the NBA's end, it's controlling the fans, because you give them the opportunity to be that close to the players, you have to find a way to control them. And you have to find a way to make it unacceptable for them to say racial things to players. Because I get being mad at Russ, but, dude, I don't know. I have a hard time believing anybody would be okay with somebody yelling racial things at them at their place of business. And then when it comes to the NFL, I don't know why it's so hard for the NFL to just go, look, if you want to be this kind of person off the field where you're beating up your wife, you don't get to play in the NFL anymore. I don't get it. And then we all act surprised. Oh, you mean these guys who play a violent sport where they beat the hell out of each other over and over and over for an entire day, go home and then beat the hell out of their family? Oh my God, I'm so surprised by that. But like, they get a pass. They're held to a lower standard. They're held to a higher standard everywhere else. Don't have an opinion on politics. Don't come out and say anything racial. Don't come out and swear. God forbid somebody in a sporting event goes on a press conference and says the F word. People are like, oh, he's a role model. He needs to understand that type of language isn't good for children. But then when he goes home and beats his wife, you're like, oh, well, whatever, he got 5 touchdowns. Like, it doesn't work like that to me. Somebody just played an NFL game. You want to go on a podium and say fuck? Whatever, dude. Do you. You just said it 100 fucking times on the field. But you want to act like a class act on the podium and then go home and throw your wife through a wall? Not great. And it stuns me because we got guys like Antonio Brown who just got traded for peanuts because they have a bad reputation. Because he's an asshole on the field. Because he took time off from his team because whatever, he felt a certain way. Or we got a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., who Dave Gettleman said he's a real pain in the ass. 26-year-old Jerry Rice is too much of a pain in the ass for you to hold on to him because he's the best wide receiver in football. Oh, but he's a pain in the ass. But we never hear about guys like Tyreek Hill as a pain in the ass. Adrian Peterson, nobody ever gives a disparaging review of his character. They all call him the nicest guy on earth. Ray Lewis, he's on TV every weekend. Tyreek Hill, people were in arms when fans threw beer on him, and I'm not cool with fans doing that either. That's the same thing as NBA fans saying racial shit to players. When Tyreek Hill scores a touchdown in New England and a bunch of Boston fans throw their beer on him, not great. You know what else? I'm not going to feel a whole too much bad for him when he's going home and beating the hell out of his kid or throwing his girlfriend down a flight of stairs. I'm not going to feel bad. Johnny Manziel beat his girlfriend within an inch of her life. I'm not going to feel too bad when he gets beer thrown on him, should that happen. We don't ever... Johnny Manziel, it's like, oh, I hope he gets happy and healthy. Dude, he beat his girlfriend into an inch of her life. Adrian Peterson, oh, well, he really rebounded from that knee injury. Yeah, he was whipping his kids with a belt. However you feel about discipline, it's not legal, and so just stop. You're injuring your kid. You break your kid's arm. That's wrong. Adrian Peterson beating his kids and admitting he still does it, and then people get on and they're like, oh, what a class act, Adrian Peterson, and what a story. But then you got guys like Odell Beckham, who love the game of football, who's 26-year-old Jerry Rice, a mercurial talent, maybe the best wide receiver in the history of football, and by the time it's all said and done, and he's getting traded because he's a pain in the ass. And you got fans in New York who are like, oh, yeah, he's not worth it. But you got fans in Kansas City that'll fall on a railroad spike for Tyreek Hill. It's weird how we are as people. Weird. All right, no good segue. I want to get to the NBA power rankings. Kind of funky this week. Number one, it's Golden State. I'm dropping Milwaukee. I had them at number 1 a week ago, but this week, and I'm going 1 through 5, which I would get killed for normally, but number 1, it's Golden State. My surprise is at the bottom, so I want to keep it there. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to say, and then the big thing that kind of swung this for me, putting Golden State back at the top, even though they're 5-5 in their last 10 games, they just had a huge win over the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the Thunder right now are reeling, 4-6 in their last 10. But the Warriors win over them the other night. And this was where Russell Westbrook was shooting, 2 of 16 from the field, 0 for 7. The Thunder are looking more and more like that team that kind of peaked really early and might be a first-round exit. Golden State also kind of just looked like they finally started giving a shit about basketball. Like they're realizing, oh, it's almost the playoffs. St. Patrick's Day, yeah, this is when we start to care. So Golden State's number 1, and I think they'll stay there. They'll hold on to that until they lose it. Number 2, Houston Rockets. 9 of their last 10 have been wins. They are 43-26. After starting the season, they were the 13 seed at one point. They have now risen all the way to the 3 in the Western Conference. 25-10 at home. James Harden, MVP, maybe. If it's not Giannis, it's Harden. We're at a point where they have a realistic shot coming down the pipe of this season to overtake Denver for the 2, hold on to that home field advantage, get a matchup with a Utah Jazz or with the LA Clippers or a San Antonio Spurs where they can just kind of coast through a first round. I love what's coming out of Houston. I hate D'Antoni basketball. I think you look at the way they play, there's no ball movement, there's no screen action. It's all just isolation, shot selection, not a whole lot of movement on the offense, and that's something I hate. It's just as a basketball fan, I love to see movement, ball sharing, and Houston doesn't do those things. If you look, though, number 3, a team that's been doing a lot of those things, the Philadelphia 76ers. And the reason I have them here, I wanted them at 4. I had another team at 3, but the reason I put them at 4 is, or at 3 rather, is because, winning 4 straight, 7-3 in their last 10, huge win over the Bucks. They weathered an absolute massive punch from Giannis, and they are, Embiid back healthy. They're starting to look like a team that can maybe come out of the East, that can maybe compete if they can beat the team that I have at number 4. The Boston Celtics. They're kryptonite in the East. Philadelphia's kryptonite in the East. The Boston Celtics. Brad Stevens, who has consistently outcoached Brett Brown. You're looking at a Celtics team now that, they've won 5 out of 6 games. 2-game winning streak again. They have a pretty easy schedule down the pipe. They got a chance where they could overtake Philly for that 3 and have a home court in a certain playoff series against the 76ers. So we're starting to look at a Celtics team to me that's coming together. And that should be scary for the rest of the Eastern Conference, especially when coming together includes Gordon Hayward's playing better basketball. Jaylen Brown is playing better basketball. Jason Tatum is getting out of that ISO-style basketball, and he's kind of playing in the flow of the offense again and finding himself in the flow of that offense. We're at a point now where I think the Celtics could very easily rise to the team that's supposed to challenge Golden State. And I think my playoff prediction, I think they still go to the finals. And I don't know that home court means a lot. Last year we saw the Cavs go to the finals as a 4. We saw Golden State go to the finals as a 2. The most important thing in the NBA is not being the one, not getting home court. It's being healthy and being the best version of yourself at the start of the playoffs. And I think the Celtics are trending up right now, which is where you want to be. March 17th, trending up is what you want to be doing. And then the number 5, it's the Milwaukee Bucks. 6-4 their last 10. It might be hot takey to have them here, but especially with the way Giannis has continued to play MVP caliber basketball. But I just look at this team and I'm not sure that they're built for the playoffs. I look at Chris Middleton, who when he played the Celtics in a borderline playoff atmosphere game, he didn't shoot that well. I look at Eric Bledsoe, who last year in his first playoff appearance in 6 years just completely ghosted the Bucks to the point where there were people asking Terry Rozier, what do you think of Eric Bledsoe's comments? And Terry said, I don't know who that is. That's not what you want if you're Eric Bledsoe, to the point that Terry's pulling up to a playoff series wearing a Drew Bledsoe Patriots jersey. Not ideal. So this is kind of the team, Milwaukee, where I'm just going to drop them more because I have to see it to believe it. And they haven't given me that. And right now, towards the end of the season, they're kind of showing more weaknesses than they are strengths in places that I want. Like today against the 76ers. They had a game that they should have won, and they weren't able to hold on. And it was part of the 76ers having a vicious final punch, but it was like, it's also just, those are games that you need to weather that punch and win. And I didn't see Milwaukee do it, and it scares me going towards the playoffs. That's the NBA Power Rank. That's all we got for our show. Remember, today's show brought to you by Audible. It is your home for all audiobooks, anything you could hope for in that range. They have the best content in audiobooks, audio media. Get your 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/mashup. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.